Here's our group. From the country of Eswatini, we had a couple people from South Africa. Now, Eswatini is the non-colonial name for Swaziland. And the king decided that too many people were going to Switzerland, but the other reason was that the colonial name for this country is Swaziland. And they were celebrating the 50th anniversary of no longer being a British colony, and decided it was time to change the name. Now here on the left side is Jabulani. Then we see Joseph, and of course Alfred and Mumbai. Mine is the only white face showing up. Kind of makes me stand out in the crowd. So if I want to be missing, it's really tough to be missing. We had an interesting time together. We only had half of our number of students. For one reason was that my friend Dr. Galela, his wife was very ill, and he was bringing people with him from South Africa. And he needed to stay where he was, which meant they had no way to get to Swaziland from South Africa. Then we had some interesting weather. I mean, interesting weather. You'll see in just a moment a video that will give you some indication of the weather, but on my final weekend there in Eswatini, I was staying in the town of Shanini at a golf course, and for over 20 minutes had constant thunder. Constant thunder. Now there are some small mountains nearby, so I'm sure some of it was echoing off of those mountains, but it never stopped. It just kept rolling. Now I'm a big fan of thunderstorms, so it's cool with me. I stood at my window and watched. There is one other major problem of things that happened during the rain. The termites come out. Now we're not talking little termites, we're talking big termites. And they mob the lights. In Swaziland, they take nets and catch them. They pull off their wings, they fry them quickly in oil, and they eat them. Sadly, nobody did it for me, so I have no idea what they taste like. They say they really like it as one of their delicacies. So when it rains, they grab up these termites, rip off their wings, and have them for dinner. So that's right. Now that's my room right there, which is why I'm here.
So were you under like just a covering, like a carport?
This is a porch to their multi-purpose room. Now you'll get some idea of the lightning. We're just outside the outskirts of Manzini, which is the largest city in Eswatini. The lightning was spectacular. I mean, it was incredible. Just a small thunderstorm.
How long did it?
I took this with my phone.
Wow.
This storm went on like this for an hour. It was so loud that if you had somebody standing next to you, you had to yell in order to be heard. I mean, it was really, really loud. So this is Jabulani. Jabulani is from Zimbabwe. He is a pastor in Zimbabwe, has actually a number of ministries, including a ministry to orphans. And the government has asked him to sit on their essentially Social Security Council. because he is a man who's respected in Zimbabwe. Now the lady behind him is a prophetess, very nice lady, very intelligent. Now we're waiting to gather for our meal on the first night, and we were expecting to have somewhere between 20 and 25 people. The tables were all set up for us, and we had 8. The weather is always a problem. When travel is difficult because you don't have a car and the bus service doesn't run by, normally what happens is somebody will bring you close and drop you off close by and then you walk. The weather kept a lot of the Swazis from showing up. Joseph kept getting text messages over and over. I'm sorry, I won't make it. The weather is too bad. I can't make it. We had a wonderful group. We had 14 people. I couldn't have asked for a better group. I don't feel cheated. It was not a waste of time and effort. They are really special, special people. Here's my friend Joseph. Joseph is a pastor, and he heads up a ministry called Every Home for Christ, Eswatini. He's a very gracious Christian man. He's got 3 kids who are just cute as the dickens. I got to take 2 out of the 3 to the game park just before I left. The little one at 4 was not allowed to go. 6 is the minimum wage. So the 7-year-old and the 11-year-old got to go, and the 4-year-old stayed home with Mom. Joseph is a very gracious Christian man with a great sense of humor, and he's the one that drove me everywhere I needed to go. Now, I filled his car with gas so he didn't have to keep putting out his own dollars, but we have a wonderful time together. Joseph is the one that I've corrupted.
Yes. Oh, the coffee guy.
Coffee. So on the way from the airport to Shanini, about an hour and a half drive, because of the speed bumps, if you could just drive, it would have been very quick. But everywhere you go, they put speed bumps to keep you driving slowly. So on the way, we had to stop and have a cup of coffee together. Then he's the one that supplied my coffee beans so that I could grind my coffee in my manual grinder and use my French press. And I left with Joseph a ½ pound of coffee beans, and he was just rejoicing. This, of course, is Alfred. Alfred has become a dear, dear friend. I dearly love this man. I'm so pleased to be associated with him, with Mumbe, to know their family. Alfred really is committed to Southern Africa. He's already making plans for when he's no longer bishop of the Wesleyan Church. Who knows when that's going to happen? But he knows what's going to happen in his life and how he wants to respond. So Alfred is just a great friend. And of course, Mumbe, she is an incredible teacher. Really does a great job of teaching. Alfred's teaching style has a lot of humor in it. Mumbe's teaching style, her humor is harder to get, but it's there. And she is just so gracious, and her graciousness comes through in the teaching. Now, Jabulani sat back and laughed. He has a great laugh. He is now a Facebook friend. I really enjoyed his company, his stories, his devotion to Jesus. So he was sitting there in the back of the room, and he participated by laughing. He was also a really fine teacher. So here are our students. We were in the chapel at the Wesleyan Bible College, so we moved everybody over to one side of the room. And it made a huge difference with people then responding to one another. It made a huge difference in the singing as well. So here are some of the folks from the front. This guy had an incredible voice. a really sweet singing voice. Let me tell you, that man needs a recording contract. It is a spectacular voice. This gentleman is from South Africa. He drove Alfred and Mumbe in from Joburg so that he could then attend the conference. He is, now is he an engineer? Anyway, he's a bivocational pastor. He serves a small church, and he makes his living through working in the secular world. A really fine Christian man. Now, the gentleman there in the blue, he went through the teaching before. He used to live there on the campus at the Bible college. He is the loudest person. He makes me quiet. He's got a big voice. He's a big man. He's got a great sense of humor. He loves people. He loves Jesus. He wanted to go through the teaching again. Because what happened the first time that we went through the teaching there, when I was there with Jim Martin, a lot of the students never decided to actually go forward. And he said, I've lost a lot of what I learned. I want to go through it again. And I'm really glad that he did go through the teaching again. We spent time in groups. You divide up into little groups and you spend time discussing stuff and making plans. We had both women and men. One of the hallmarks of ILI, International Leadership Institute, is that if you are called by God, we don't care whether you're a man or woman. That's not our problem. If you're called and you're a Christian leader, you ought to lead. It causes problems in some areas, as it did in India, because in some areas, women are not allowed to teach. It's even that way in some parts of Africa. But thankfully, in Eswatini, in most places in South Africa, in Zambia, it's not an issue. In Zimbabwe, it's not an issue. So here are our graduates, having received their certificates. They made plans to actually make plans. So on January 3, a group of them are getting together to set the date and to outline how they're going to do the next regional conference. Here I am wearing the royal colors of Swaziland. Gentlemen have to have their shirts tied over the right, their robes, and ladies get it tied over the left, as you will be able to see here. It really does make you feel like royalty. It wasn't just work. We had a wonderful time working. They were full days. We stayed right there on campus, all of us did. I had a little room in the guest house where there was a kitchen and thankfully a bathroom with a shower that was large enough to get in. Thanks be to God. And thanks to solar hot water heaters, man, did I get hot showers in the morning. Now, the sad part in Africa is I tend to wake up about 5 in the morning. It doesn't matter when I went to bed at 5 in the morning, zap, I'm awake. I always had a hot shower. I don't know about anybody else, but I had a hot shower. Now, this is a beautiful little butterfly. When he spreads his wings, he's actually red. His interior wings are red. But I couldn't get him to do it and to stand still for me, because when they're not flying, this is what you see on this butterfly. When they are flying, you don't get to get good pictures of the red. Do you know what this is? A dung beetle. After all these trips to Africa, I finally have seen a dung beetle. Dung beetles come out when there is moisture. And when I've been there, it's really been too dry for dung beetles. They have a kind of a purplish tint to them, and when they fly, you do not want them to run into you. They are big bodies. These are the C-130s of the bug world. They're about that big.
Ew.
And they are so much fun to watch because they form the dung into a ball
Really?
and then they roll it backwards to where they're going to take it because it's going to be a very tasty meal in times to come.
Oh my gosh. Look
Now
at
this is a little tiny ball of dung. They get big balls of dung as well.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's what they get sometimes is cow.
Wow.
They are just fun to watch. I was so excited that I got to see a dung beetle after all these times in Africa. And then, of course, they were everywhere. So if you got a nice patch of hot, steamy dung, you could see dozens of dung beetles just rolling the stuff away towards their hole. They were fun. Great blue heron. We have them here, they have them there. I love these plants. Giraffes eat these plants. They're just gorgeous. They look like little cotton balls. This is a weaver bird. Weaver birds make interesting nests because the hole for the weaver bird nest is upside down. It's on the bottom of the nest and it hangs there. And their nest will swing back and forth in the breeze and sometimes they fall down. You say, why would a weaver bird want its hole to be at the bottom? So snakes can't get in. It's really difficult for a snake to get into a weaver bird hole to get at its eggs or a young and to get back out. It's virtually impossible. So what did God do? God gave them the ability to crawl in from the bottom. And they are so much fun to watch, and they flit here and they flit there. Here is a plover. I love plovers. They're just nifty birds. We have plovers here in California that nest, yeah, they do look a lot like killdeer. They nest over at Moss Landing. But the plovers that come here are about this tall. They're little gray birds, and they spend their time between California and the Arctic. So if you want to see a plover, you can see plover here in California. These are related to lapwings, by the way. Our friend the warthog. Warthogs, rhinos, elephants, everybody was jazzed because there was mud. They took full advantage of it. They rolled and they rolled and they rolled and they sprayed it all over.
Was this at the wild animal park?
That one, yes.
But were they?
But they were also running around where I was staying at the golf course. Lots of warthogs and lots of impala, which are the rats of the jungle. Because impala are everywhere, but boy, do they taste good. These are a couple of vultures. They help clean stuff up, so don't say bad things about vultures.
They're not pretty.
This is a paradise flycatcher. This is the female. The male has very similar coloring, but the male's tail will extend about this far beyond his normal tail, so about twice the size of that tail. They are just beautiful birds. I was trying to get a clear shot, but wasn't able to do it, so you have to see him with a branch. A marabou stork. These guys will eat anything, and they help to keep the bush clean. So if you have some dead, decaying stuff, the marabou just says, thank you very much for providing lunch. I'll fight with the vultures. They're very big, and they're very graceful until they land. And then they look like little old men in tuxedos who are struggling to walk. Rhino and young. So this is Mrs. Rhino, and I don't know whether it's a male or female baby, but everybody was covered, as you can see, with mud.
Well, everything's really green.
Everything is green, and it greened up. My first day at Shanini, it was okay. my third day at Shanini, so I arrived Friday night, was there Saturday. On Sunday, it was like the bush had come alive because of the water. It was spectacular. It was incredible. Bats. Their little faces. This is a young one, and this is mommy. And they're hanging just inside a building. I love those bats. They're really fun to watch, and they love eating bugs. And here we go, the rats of the jungle. They're really beautiful, these impalas. But they're a dime a dozen. Every time you turn around, there's another impala. You say, "Can't I see something else?" And they say, "No."
They're pretty.
This is a thrush. And I still haven't figured out which thrush it is, but one of these days I'll figure it out. And my pride and joy, a woodland kingfisher.
Look at that.
Spectacular colors.
Is that beak red or?
That beak is red. And that's one of the ways you know that it's a woodland as opposed to some of the other ones because of the color of the beak. A woolly-necked stork. And you can see it's tough because of all the stuff behind him, but they've got this white neck. And of course, we have to have elephants.
Oh. How cute.
When this guy started to come toward us, our guide there in the park decided it was time to back up,
Yeah.
which is a wise decision.
Oh, how cute.
The lion and the lioness, and it was warm, so they were underneath the tree.
How cute.
This is a different lioness. And this is one of those once-in-a-lifetime pictures. That he was at the right place, the sun was at the right place, and so often that doesn't happen. So I was just rejoicing that I got that once-in-a-lifetime. He was about 30 feet. And he crossed to the middle of the road where there was a mud puddle, did a little lapping up of water. Okay. Come on, you should be playing. You're not going to play? This is Alfred saying thank you. And I so much wish you could be hearing his voice, but you can't. What you do in Africa is a gift to Southern Africa, as Alfred puts it. Training that goes on and lives that are changed in ministry.
On behalf of the National Conference held here in Eswatini, we want to say thank you to the park for your love, for your sacrificial giving that made it possible for us for this conference. We appreciate it very, very much. Your giving has made it possible for the gospel of the Lord Jesus Christ to continue to move in this part of the world. Thank you.
They had a special way of clapping that they designed there to clap for us. And it went. Though sometimes it was. It just depended on what the mood was. And they would say, do the 3 or do the 4. And that's the way it was. So this is the brief, you'll be seeing more pictures as the weeks go on, the brief summation of what happened there in Eswatini.